we are holding, we are holding on 14b3 on the bottom. That's Yud Dalet Amud Beis on the bottom. In the art scroll, it would be the right column. My Tamotib Abishol. What is the reason for Abishol? So just to repeat, there's a machlokes going on about what is the order of the service of the avodah with regard to the ketores. When is it done? The menorah's avodah was split into two. Nobody disagrees with this. 5 of the candles, 5 of the lamps were cleaned at the beginning. 2 were done later. The 2 were done later, so that is the question. So, according to Abishol, that the ketores was brought after all 7, 5 and 2 of the lamps of the menorah were dealt with, clean, reset, and burnt. Because the break between the 5 and the 2 in the menorah is tied to the throwing of the blood, the Zerikas Adam of the daily carbon tumid. So the split between the 5 and the 2 of the menorah has got to do with the carbon tumid and the throwing of its blood. The ketores comes afterwards. The Rabbanan say absolutely not. The split between the 5 and the 2 of the menorah is the bringing of the ketores. So this, they were going back and forth. So now the Gemara says, "My Talmud Abishol." And again, Charlie, stop me if this gets confusing. We'll just repeat because it is confusing, this Gemara a little bit. My Talmud Abishol. What's the Talmud of Abishol? Tiksiv. The pasuk says, "Baboike badboike hebe tivoy esaneres." Every morning. That's babaika by morning, morning to morning, when he prepares the lamps, and afterwards, v'hodar, and after the Torah says, yakti reno, he shall bring the incense up in smoke. So clearly, it seems to be saying that the entire preparing of the menorah, of the neiros of the menorah, precede the bringing up of the ketores. So good point. So how are the Chazal going to learn this up? Where Chazal say that in fact it's 5 ketores and then the remaining 2. And now we're on today's daf. 15a1 Tezvav Aminal says the Gemara. They'll explain the pasuk that the pasuk is coming to tell us. That at the time when you're preparing the lamps, that's the time of bringing the ketores. So in other words, when I start preparing the lamps, when I do 5 of the lamps, that is the time when I bring the ketores, at which I then finish up the lamps with 2. In other words, the pasuk is not saying a specific order of 7 and then the ketores. No, it's 5. When I'm working with the menorah, that's the time to do the ketores. And in fact, the Rabbanan say, if you really take a look at the pasuk, it's going to come out a lot clearer the way we're saying. The Eloi Teimahachi, because if you don't say this, but you say that it means that the entire menorah was dealt first, all 7 candles were dealt first, and lamps were dealt first, and then the ketores. Then how do you explain what's going on in the afternoon at the end of this daily service? And Aaron kindled the lamps in the afternoon, he shall bring the ketores. Hachanami, you tried to tell me the Bereshim Madlik Neiris that first in the afternoon he finishes dealing with lighting the lamps. And then Bahada Maktik and Torah Shalbenu Abayim, and only then does he go ahead and offer up the incense, the ketores up. So in other words, the last thing would be the ketores. The chite mahachanami. You want to say, sure, that's what we do. In the afternoon, we end the day as follows. We finish up, we deal with the menorah, and then we go ahead and do the ketores. Give me 1 second. Sorry, my allergies are driving me nuts. So says the Gemara, "V'chi tema hachanami." No, okay, that's what we're going to do. Can't be. But Tanya, because we learned in a brisa, the pasuk says that Aaron and his son should arrange the menorah may erev ad boiker, from the evening until the morning. Okay, may erev ad boiker. If you want to take a look at the side of the art scroll just to see the pasuk, the right side of the Gemara, on the Gemara side of the Gemara, Beis ba'oil moyed michutz laparoichet sheshara alaedus yarich oisay Aaron uvanov may erev ad boiker lefnei Hashem chukas soilo b'doriseichem me'eis b'nei Yisrael. So says the pasuk. So now the Gemara explains. Tein lo midasa. What does this mean? Give them a menorah its full midah, its full measure of oil. So that it should burn continuously all night from the evening until the morning. Dover acher, another explanation. In that there is no other avodah and no other service valid from evening till morning except the kindling of the lamps of the menorah. What do you see from the second explanation? That the menorah is the last avodah. Not that we do the menorah and then end with the ketores. Elamai, it must mean that we do the ketores first and then do the menorah. So says the Gemara, Elamai kamarachvana. Then what are you going to do with what the Torah said? The other pasuk that seems to indicate that first you deal with the menorah and only then in the afternoon do you bring up the ketores. Comes to explain the Edon hadloka tehei miktar ketores. At the time when you're lighting the lamps, that's the time to offer the incense, the ketores. Hachanami. That at the time when you're preparing the lamps at the end of the day, that's the time when you should be offering the ketores. In other words, you should do 5, offer the ketores, and then finish up the menorah with the last 2, and then we're good to go. The menorah is the last thing you did until the next morning. So what's Abba Shaul going to do with this? Abba Shaul says, right? Abba Shaul is the one that says you light all 7 lamps first, and only then do you do the ketores. How are you going to deal with this paraisa that clearly says that the last thing that's done of the day is the menorah, not the ketores? Elamai, that means something has to be left over to do with the menorah, not the way he's saying it, that you finish the menorah first and only then you do the ketores. The afternoon is different. Shani Hasam Diksib Oisoi. It. Aaron and his son shall arrange it. In other words, it's a Gezeira Sakosov that the ending, the last avodah done of the day is the lighting of the lamps. Abba Shaul would agree. In the evening, the ketores has to be brought before the final lighting of the lamps. Mashen came in the morning, however, that's what Abba Shaul is coming to tell you. Abba Shaul says in the morning, you clean up the menorah, you light the menorah completely, all 7 lamps, and only then do you bring the ketores. So Abba Shaul splits the difference between the morning and the afternoon. Mashen came the Rabbanon, do not. Now, okay, now the Gemara goes back to what we had before, of a stira, a contradiction between our Mishnah and the Mishnah on Chafhei Amid Aleph, on 25a, on whether the menorah precedes the ketores or the ketores precedes the menorah. And so now we tried to answer it up over there. We gave different answers. Abaye said that both, in other words, And each Mishnah, Abai explained that each Mishnah is talking about a different part of the cleaning of the menorah. One Mishnah is talking about the first five, the beginning of cleaning the menorah, and then you do the ketaris and finish up. The other Mishnah that says you end with the menorah is talking about, by definition, the last two cups. So there is no contradiction between the Mishnahs. They're just talking about different points of the cleaning of the menorah. Rav Papa Amalai Kasha said, no, I'll give it to you more simpler. Ha Rabbanon. Our Mishnah places the burning of the ketoris first, and then the completion of the menorah is the Rabbanon. Ha Abishol. The Mishnah on Chafei Amid Aleph on 25a, which says that you finish the lamps completely first, and then the ketoris. That's Abishol. So we're dealing with two different things. So that would mean our Mishnah on Daf Yud Daled would be the Rabbanon according to Rav Papa. The Mishnah on Daf Chafei would be Abishol. Now we're on 15a2. The Gemara says, but 1 minute. So now what have you said? The Mishnah over here on Daf Yud Daled is Kirabanon, is like the Rabbanon, that the ketoris comes before the last two lamps of the menorah. Pious, the Mishnah on 25a, which talks about the lotteries, the various lotteries that they do, the 4 lotteries that they do in the base of Mikdash, to give the avodah which client gets to do what avodah, right, is referring to Abishol, who says all the lamps were done first, and only then you brought the ketoris. Amos Seifa, but in that case, let's go further in the Masechta. Daf Lamed Aleph Amid Beis on 31b, the Mishnah says as follows: Hey, Viu Loyes Atomid, they brought the everyday. This is again what the Kohen Gadol was doing. Hey, Viu Loyes Atomid, they brought the daily Tomid to the Kohen Gadol. This is on Yom Kippur, and again on Yom Kippur, the Kohen Gadol does all the avodas. There is no other kohen involved in the avodas. So now you have a problem. How is the kohen gadol going to do the shechita, the slaughtering, and at the same time do the kabbalah, the capturing or the accepting of the blood that's coming out of the cut that he did when he did the shechita, when he did the sacrifice? So the Mishnah there says as follows: on Yom Kippur, they brought him the regular tumid. Kartzai, he made the initial incision into the neck of the kohen. And then another kohen comes and completes the shechita. So he goes ahead and he cuts the windpipe and the food pipe, thereby completing the shechita in reality, but he doesn't continue this. He leaves the knife in place, quickly runs and grabs a clay asharis, a holy vessel, and another kohen comes and finishes up the slaughter. Nichnas, and he can be marek al yodai, while the kohen goes and the kohen gadol grabs the clay sharetz and does the kabbalah, the accepting of the blood. Then the Mishnah keeps going. Nichnas lahaktiris haketiris. He then enters the base of Mikdash to burn the ketoris, and to prepare the lamps. So what did you come to? Asin l'Rabbanon. So the third Mishnah, the one on 31b on Lamed Aleph Amid Beis, is back to the sheet of the Rabbanon that first comes the ketoris, and then you finish dealing with the menorah. Because it says nichnas lahaktiris haketoris ulehetiv esaneris. So the order first is ketoris, and only afterwards neris, i.e., the last two lamps on the menorah. So it comes out Reisha. That means the our Mishnah on Yudalid Amid Aleph is the Rabbanon. The Seifa and the last Mishnah on Daf Lamed Aleph Amid Beis 31b is also the Rabbanon. And now you're saying Umitziasa Abishol, the middle section on 25a of Chafei Amid Aleph, which clearly says over there that the menorah was completed, and only then was brought the Ketairis, turns out to be Abishol. So what are we getting over here? Yudalid is the Rabbanon. Daf 25 is Abishol. Daf 31 is back to the Rabbanon. That's a terrible case of editing. So can that be Amalach Rapapa? Yes. In Reisha V'Sefer Rabbanon, Mitziasa Abishol. Yes, it could happen. That's the way. It's not, you have no proof one form or another. There's no proof over here one way or another how the editing was. If this is the way it is, this is the way it is. That's it. Now, the Gemara says, Vishlema Abaya, God's fine Abaya, who says that the two Mishnahs are not arguing. The one Mishnah is talking about the 2 lamps. The other Mishnah is talking about the 5 lamps. The 5 lamps, everybody agrees, comes after before the Ketairis, and the 2 lamps come after the Ketairis, according to the Rabbanans of both Mishnahs. The one on 14, Daf Yudalit, and the one on Daf Kafei are the Rabbanan, and certainly the one on Daf Lamed Aleph is certainly the Rabbanan. Bereisha v'Sefer Rabbanan u'mitziasa abishmol oimukim lei, because he does not agree with this thing that the Reisha on 14 and the Sefer on 31 are the Rabbanan, but the middle at 25 is Abishol. He doesn't hold this. So therefore he comes up with the basic answer. It's just talking about at different points of the Avodah of the Menorah, either at the beginning of the 5 or the last 2. Elara Papa, my Tamaloyamaka. Why doesn't he say that both Mishnahs are reflecting the Rabbanon? Because it's a much more elegant answer. You don't have to come on to say that the editing is a little funny. Amalach, she'll tell you. Tana Bereisha Tavishnei Neris. Are you telling me then that the first Tana in 14 is talking about the last part of the Avodah of the Menorah, the last 2 lamps, i.e., the Ketairis comes before finishing up the last 2 lamps of the Menorah. And now you're telling me that the one on 25 on Chafei Amid Aleph is talking about the beginning, the doing of the 5 lamps, and only after that becomes the Ketairis. You got your order backwards, says the Gemara. I would tell you, Uri Ba'amu the Kamari, in the first perek of our Masech, the Daf Yudalid, which we're holding right now, right? We're talking about things globally in general terms in the Clolius. We're first throwing all the facts out there. And now, as we proceed along the Masechta, but the precise order to get to the particulars begins only later in the 2nd and 3rd parakim of the Masechta. Simple. That's why the beginning on 14, it's talking about the end, Ketairis, and then the last 2. And then on Daf Chafei, it already begins to talk about the overall Avodah, that we got to do 5, the Ketairis, and then 2. Good. Says the Gemara Vayta. Gufa. Ubalai, we were talking about this before. If you remember yesterday, we said the Kohen comes along and he gets to the northeast corner of the altar and he sprays the blood on the altar on that corner. Then he goes to the southwest corner and he sprays on the southwest corner. Abishol said, so that's called Shnayim Shehem Arba, 2 sprays that accomplish 4. Okay. Now Abishol said it's Shloisha Shehem Arba. On the northeastern corner, I agree, you just do it on the corner. But when you get to the southwest, you actually do it on the south side and the west side. So it's 3 to equal 4. And obviously we didn't explain it, but now we're going to get to the explanation. The Kohen who selected to throw the blood of the carbon tummy comes to the northeast corner of the Mizbeach. And standing at the foot standing over there at the foot of the Mizbeach, he throws the blood on the northeast corner. He then goes around the Mizbeach. The southwest corner, he throws on the southwest corner. So this is Shnayim Sheim Arba. The Tani Allah. And concerning this mission, we learned the Brisa where we had somebody that said Amish. Rabbi Shimon HaMitzpah, Mishana B'Tamid. Rabbi Shimon HaMitzpah says regarding the Tamid, we're on 1583. 1583. He said a little different. When you get to the corner of the northeast corner, you spray on the northeast corner, and you accomplish two with one spray. But when you get to the southwest, he first puts blood on the west wall, he puts on the south wall. Okay? So now, Chazal says that you do Shnayim Sheinar, but northeast corner and southwest corner. In other words, the carbon atomid, which is an oila, the pasuk calls the tamid an oila. Dabir b'nei Yisrael v'mata leihem as carbon nachni l'yishai rein l'choy tishmu l'ayim. V'mata lem zehu isha asher tikimu l'Hashem kivasim b'nei Yisrael notzim shnayim l'ayim ilo samim. It's called an isha l'Hashem, an oila. So the Rabbanan call it an oila, and they go ahead and they therefore apply the blood. Like every oila is shnayim shehem arba, northeast corner, southwest corner, which gets all four corners by two sprays. Rav Shimon is now creating Rav Shimon HaMitzpah, Ish Mitzpah, is creating a new hybrid, a new kind of thing. It's neither here nor there. It's not like the oila, which is only done on the two corners, Shnaim Shnei Narba, and it's not like a chatos, which is done on all four corners. A chatos is done, you got to do all four sides deliberately, no corners. A chatos, you actually have to apply the blood to all four sides of the mizbeach. So, pray the Gemara, my Talmud of Shimon ben Isha Mitzvah. What are you doing? What's going on here? What's this hybrid? Says the Gemara, Rabbi Yochanan says in the name of one of the members of the yeshiva, Rabbi Yanai, Amakra, the pasuk says regarding the Musafim of Rosh Chodesh, Yisir Izim Echad Lachatas Lashem Al Oilas Hatomid Yasreb Nizkad. Let's read that in the English. And one he got for a chatos offering to Hashem, in addition to the continual oila offerings, oilas tamid shall be made in its wine libation. So now, the tamid is certainly the oila. The tamid is an oila, because that's the constant. Al oilas hatamid yases. So the tamid is called a oila. But the Karab Torah, which simply connects them in one pasuk, also says it needs to be performed like a chatos haketzad. How can you go ahead and be both an oila and a chatos? Well, noisen achas shehi shtayim. He does one application achas that equals two, i.e., on a corner. Kimaisa oila. So in the northeastern corner, on the Mizrachit Sephardim, on the northeastern corner of the altar, he does one spray, which equals two, because the one spray on the corner will go to the east and the north. Kemaisa oila. That's what we do with an oila. We do shnayim shem abba, right? We do corners. Shtayim, and then shtayim shem shtayim. And then when he reaches the other corner, the Mizrah, when he reaches Marabas Deraimis, when he reaches the southwest corner, there he do Shnayim, Shtayim, Shehein, Shtayim. Do two, that's two. In other words, you apply it directly to the west wall, and you apply it directly to the south wall, which is just the way we do Chatasis. So you create a hybrid. Kemaisa Chatas. And this is how Rav Shimon Ish HaMitzpah arrives at his position with regard to the carbon tablet. Says the Gemara, maybe not. But let him do Shtayim, 2 that are equal to 4. K'may sa'oila. Let him do first the whole Ma'isa Oila. Go to the northeastern corner, spray on the corner. That's one that equals 2. Go to the southwest corner, spray on the corner, and you'll get 1 that equals 2. In other words, 2 sprays, Shtayim, Shem Arba, which is, of course, the avodah of the oil. Arba, Shem Arba, and then go back and now do 4 that equals 4. In other words, go and do a full chatas avodah. Go to the put blood on the north side, put blood on the east side, put blood on the west side, put blood on the south side. In other words, do a full oilah, shtayim sheim arba, and then do a full chatas, arba sheim arba. Says the Gemara. Now you're already going too far. We do not find that you apply the blood to provide kapara and atonement, and then you go ahead and you repeat and provide a atonement the second time. We're not into going back and repeating. What's the whole reason we're putting the blood on the mizbeach? It's kaviyochol, a way of saying as if this was our blood. We're saying internally, Rabbi Shalom, we sinned against you. Really, we should have sacrificed ourselves to you and bring up our own blood on your altar. But we're we're atoning through the animals that we're bringing. Right? That's the entire purpose of the animal sacrifice. It's not like God needs our sacrifices. In fact, most of our history, the Rabbi Shalom has not gotten sacrifices. He's gotten the sacrifices of our mouth. The Shalom affirms to say we are in this diaspora, in this golus, longer than the history from Avraham Avinu to Churban Bayis Sheni. From Avraham Avinu to Churban Bayis Sheni was about 1,800 years. We are in this golus of Rome, of the Western golus, what he called longer than our entire history that we're talking about here. So it's not that the Rabbi Shalom requires, well, the Zevish has no ego. He doesn't need this. This is for us to understand that really when one does what is essentially is moired b'malchus chas v'shalom, when we do an aveira, we're rebelling against the laws of Hashem. We should really be offering up our own lives as a kapara. And David just says, no, I don't want your lives. I want you to do tshuva. The way of doing tshuva is to picture that this animal that I'm bringing is really me. And the blood that I'm putting on the mizbeach is really my blood that I'm putting on the mizbeach. So, says the Gemara, once I put one application of the blood, whether it's shnayim shein arba of the oila, or arba shein arba, all 4 sides, like the chatas, that's enough. That's a kapara. We don't see that you do it twice. David is not looking for double. David doesn't want you to go crazy over here. Do tshuva and move on. So, says the Gemara, but in fact, but for that matter, do we ever find that an avodah of the blood, like Shimon Ish Hamitzvah said, that half of it is like a chatas and half of it is like an oila? Remember what Shimon Ish Hamitzvah said, that we're going to do one corner, the northeast corner, the Mizrachis Sephinis, we're going to do like an oila. But the Maravis, the rightness, we're going to do like a chatos. The one we're going to do echad shem shtayim, and the other corner we're going to do shtayim shem shtayim, which was a hybrid between oila and chatos. We don't find anywhere that we do any hybrid avodah. So that's also unprecedented. Ella, says the Gemara, Al Karcha, we have no choice but to say we're on 15a4. 15a4. Al Karcha, we're forced to say Hekisha Nakosav, that since the pasuk compares the carbon tarmid to the chatos, where it says Yisir Izim Echad Lachatos Lashem Al Oila Satomid Yeyosef Iniskot. So it compares it. The Talmud is an exception to the general rule, and it has both an oila and chatos components. Hakanami, that in the case of That over here are you trying to say that we should do the full avodah? In other words, because the covering tummy over there, that other pasuk is talking about Rosh Chodesh. We're talking about Rosh Chodesh here. We're talking about the regular daily Rosh Hashanah. It should have to do both avodas, a full oila avodah, shtayim shein arba, northeast corner, southwest corner, and then a full chatas avodah, north, east, south, and west, all four corners. Says the Gemara, no. Ha pisuk matana is ba'almum. Here, with regard to the way Reb Shimon ben Ishapazi said it, it's a mere separation of one of the blood applications. In other words, instead of doing shtayim shein arba, what does he do? He does shloisha shein arba. One corner, the northeast corner, and two of the southwest, on the west one, the south. So what did he do? He only added one. Normally, the oila is shnayim shein arba. So he's saying shloisha shein arba, one extra. You want to go and say that in fact we should do an entire oila avodah, and then we should go back and do an entire chatas avodah. That's already going too far. That I don't agree to. So says the Gemara, "V'nesiv achashu shtayim lamata," but let the kohen place the first blood application, the one that is equal to two, meaning the northeast corner where you spray once on the corner and it splatters north and east. It should be placed below the lower half of the altar. This is talking about that on the Mizbeach, in the center of the Mizbeach, there was a little red line that went around it. Some of the avodas were above, and some of the avodas were below. The oila avodah was below the line. The chatas avodah, meaning the spraying of its blood, was above the line. So, it says like this, we should do the one that equals to the corner of the northeast corner, should do below the line. The way we do with the oila, below the line. And then do the chatas part in the southwest, two that equal to the south wall and the west wall. On the upper part of the oila, like we do with the chatas, which gets sprayed on the chatas. So, what it goes, so this becomes inconsistent. Okay, after the Gemara, no, we have to pick one. If you're doing the avodah, you got to pick one above and below. And we're going to start with the oila, which is the northeast. So the northeast corner we spray on the bottom. So therefore on the west, even if we're going to do it like a chatos, we're going to do it to the actual walls, west and south. We're still going to do it below the line because we do not find that you spray partially below the line, partially above the line. Right? The Gemara below is that a fact. But we learn that on Yom Kippur, that on one of the avodas on Yom Kippur is that the kohen gadol has to spray towards the kapayris, towards the cover of the Aron HaKodesh that's found in the Holy of Holies, in the Lefnaya, Lefnim, in the Kodesh HaKadoshim. And says the Gemara, he sprinkles some of the blood one time above and 7 times below. So you see that you do spray different ups and downs. And for the Gemara, nah. It is up and down, but not because you have to go 1 above and 7 below. Kim matzlif. It's like a matzlif. He's spraying the blood like a matzlif. My matzlif. Nachse Rabbi Yehuda kimin nag dono. Like one who whips. If you take a look at 3 lines from the bottom of Rashi, 3 lines from the bottom. Like the messenger of Besdin, Hamake who gives Malchus, Biritzua with the whip, Zulamata Mizu, Shemake Bimokim Echon, Veloshin Hamatzlip Loyadili. I'm not exactly sure where Matzlip comes from, but what he says, the way they whipped is that they went from essentially the furthest part of the body, the lower part, and worked their way up. They didn't try to hit in the same place. No, probably for protection. So the way it was done was like a whipping thing. The furthest part to the hollow part. So one part he did upwards like this, and then as it towards the bottom, towards where he was, it was sprayed the other thing. So in other words, that really wasn't an up and down. It was the idea that you were spraying like a whip. You start up here and then you go down like this, come down like this. Essentially, it's a different way of using the hand. The law, but says the Gemara, I got another avoid on Yom Kippur that clearly is up and down, but nan he's mimenu al Torah. Very interesting logic here. But he's and the Kohen Gadol mimenu al Torah shall mizbeach sheva panim, and the Kohen Gadol sprinkled onto the purity of the mizbeach hazav. That means the inside mizbeach 7 times. Okay? In other words, first the blood was put on all 4 corners of the Mizbeach, and then was sprinkled sign on the purity of the Mizbeach. And we're going to see what this is all about in a minute. My, says the Gemara. Now, what does purity mean over here? We're on 15a5. Lav, apalga the Mizbeach. It must mean the midpoint of the Mizbeach. The exact middle point of the Mizbeach. Kidei Amri, and she, like people say, with regard to the day, Tahar Tihara, the purity of the day has arrived. Who Palga the Yoma? That means midday. In other words, the day is purified, meaning the sun is shining on both sides of the day. The first part of the day and the second part of the day. So, the intent of the Mishnah is to tell us that all 7 sprinklings cannot have possibly be done at the precise middle of the Mizbeach, because that was not possible. Some were applied above it and some were below it. So you see that you do have a case of above and below. Rabbi Bar Shila says, Rabbi Bar Shila, Lord, no. And we're on Amid base. No, we're on Agufe de Mizbeach. That means that the blood is sprayed, in fact, on the top part of the Mizbeach. Look at the top Rashi on 15b1 on Tezvav on the base. Anufe de Mizbeach al Gagoy on its roof. Umay Loshen Taharai. What is the Loshen of purity? Al Shem Shemetar Umipane Aketoires Shenishra Love Baboike B'Chatetzra Be'elech Umaza Alamokim Agoli. Because in the morning we cleaned up all the ash from the Mizbeh, from the Ketairis that was on top, and we cleaned up the area, Midiksiv, like it says, like the essence of Shemayim that you come to be Mitar. So in other words, in the morning you clean it up so that it's pristine, clean before the new Avodah begins the next day in the morning by the Karban Atom. Like it says, and it was the appearance of the heavens in purity. Beautiful. Says the Gemara, okay, now that I explained it to you, we started going to Reb Shimon Isha Mitzvah. We start in the northeast corner, Echad Shem Shtayim. We pour it into the northeast corner and it sprays north and east. And then we do like the Chatas in the southwest corner. We do the west wall and then the south wall. By the way, why according to Reb Shimon Isha Mitzvah, why is the Kohen starting with the oilah and then go turn around and do like a chatas? Let's do it the other way. Nisa bereish the chatas, what the nisa the oilah. Maybe start like a chatas and then do an oilah. Says the Marachib the oilah. Since the Talmud is in fact an oilah, everybody knows that the Talmud is an oilah. It begins first. In other words, the Talmud is an oilah that has some chatas components. Since it ultimately is an oilah, and let's be honest, an oilah is the holiest of all kabbanas because it's kulei Lashem. We start with that. Says the Gemara, yeah, but let me ask. So we said we start with the northeast corner, And then we move over to the southwest corner. Why do we start in the northeastern? Umarovus the Rimus and then end up in the southwest. Instead, go put the blood first on the southeastern corner and then go to the northwestern corner. In other words, why do we start in New England and then go to California? Let's start instead. Let's start instead in Florida and end up in Washington State, right? If you want to look at it that way, who told you that New England and California are the anchor? In fact, Florida and Washington State are the other things. And you understand the idea. The basic question being, who picked these corners? Amri. Oila to una yisoy. The blood application of the oila always requires the yisoy, the base, the foundation of the altar. The keren, the roimis mizrachis, and the southeastern corner, loihavile yisoy, does not have a base. Look at the picture on number 7 in the art scroll, and you can see they graded out that the base actually only, as you can see here, is only on 2 sides. Okay, so it's only on 2 sides. Since it's only on 2 sides, which if you think about it, on the southwest, on the southeast side, there is no base. The Mela, we don't do it over there. Since there's no base, because in fact over there you have the ramp, you have the drainage system, etc. So since there's no base on the Florida side of the bay, the southeastern corner, which is right next to the ramp, since there's no there, therefore diagonally across, even though in the northwest there is a ramp, we don't do it. We take the 2 corners that have somewhat of the base. Says the Gemara, but why do you begin in the northeastern corner of Ahada Maris Maravas Deraimis? Start in California of Ahada Maris and then do northeast and do it in New England. Again, the question being, and again, the whole thing was, remember, things got forgotten. These are the technical issues of the Mizbeach, of the Beis Hamikdash. They couldn't remember totally what really took place and the why of it. So they worked it out. Since the master says, all turns that you make in the Beis Hamikdash should be to the right and to the east. And now you know why, where we get the idea that we do everything, try to do everything with the right hand and do everything to the east. Because this was the chashuv way of doing it in the Beis Hamikdash. And we're on 15b2, and we're almost to the end today, right on time. They say, Bereisha Bahu Paga. It turns out that the Kohen would first encounter the northeast corner, because where all the kabbalah shechted, everything was shechted in the north, in Safine, in the north part of the Azara. So therefore, that's the place where you first get to, the northeast. Gemara asked one more question. And where do I know that the daily oila, the Talmud, that the Torah says, the Rachmana, the merciful one says, perform with connections like a chatos, dilma kechatasu. Maybe in fact it's just the opposite, that the Talmud is really a chatos who become of a ma'aseh, and you should do it like something like an oila. We've been making an assumption the whole time that the Talmud is really an oila, and it just has some chatos components. Maybe it's just the opposite, and it's a chatos, and it has some oila components, which would mean that you should apply first to the actual walls and only then do a corner sprinkle, at least according to Rav Shimon Isha Mitzvah, Loi Sakadam. You should not let this at the end. Diksiv, because it says, Al Oila Satomid Yayosim in Iskai. and the Chatas offering to Hashem, in addition to the continuous Oilo offerings, the Oilo Summit should be made. My Kamer Achman, what is the Rabbanan Qatar telling us? Midi Techados Shidei Oilo. Clearly, something that's appropriate only for a Chatas should be intertwined into this Oilo. But clearly, the Tamid is an Oilo. So, we're going to stop over here.